Hey, everybody, I don't know about you, but as you've watched out over the world, the war in Russia and Ukraine is not just isolated to Eastern Europe. It's spread all over the world, and you can see it in market instabilities. You can see it here. People who do not think that that war is affecting you, all you got to do is look at gas prices. You look at your food prices. You see the global change that has happened. But you know something that's also affected investments as well. And I've said all along, legacy precious metals is your navigator. They're the ones that see you through to get to the next level. The good news about this is even with market volatility, market instability, you've got options. And gold prices are rising as investors turn to gold. And gold presents a hedge against this inflation and that protects you against the weakening dollar, which we are seeing. Legacy Precious Metals is the only company I trust to deal with gold and silver and the other precious metals. You need this investment. You need this as part of your portfolio to keep you buffered from what we're seeing in the world, war and volatility in the market. This is where you need to be. Call Legacy Precious Metals today. Be proactive about this. Get on board with it. Call them at 866-528-1903, 866-528-1903, or you can download their free investor's guide at legacypminvestments.com. legacypminvestments.com, your navigator in a volatile world of investments.
Do you want to listen to a podcast?
By who?
Georgia GOP Congressman Doug Collins.
How is it?
The greatest thing I have ever heard in my whole life.
I could not believe my ears.
In this house, wherever the rules are disregarded, chaos and mob rule. It has been said today, where is bravery? I'll tell you where bravery is found and courage is found. It's found in this minority who has lived through the last year of nothing but rules being broken, people being put down, questions not being answered, and this majority say, be damned with anything else. We're going to impeach and do whatever we want to do. Why? Because we won an election. I guarantee you, one day you'll be back in the minority and it ain't gonna be that fun.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to a new week, Doug Collins Podcast. Got a lot of great stuff coming up this week. Starting off today, in just a few minutes, you're going to hear from Sara Carter. Sara Carter, you see her all over Fox News. You hear she's got a great new Dark Wars podcast, which deals with the border. We go into a lot of things. Sara and I have been dealing with investigations, Russia, all kinds of things in Washington, D.C. for months now. And for years as we go by. So you're going to get a taste of that. But I just wanted to give a quick update. Last week we finally saw the Republicans get past the speaker vote, and they actually got into some issues of, putting markers in the ground saying, hey, we don't want to see these 87,000 FBI, IRS agents. They did a bill, and they're putting a marker. Now, some people are saying, well, it'll never go anywhere. But that's okay. At least they're putting the marker out there saying, hey, here's what's going to come on down the line. They also took a stand for life. That one was the one that just amazed me a little bit in the sense that I couldn't understand how Democrats will vote not to give life-giving care to a newborn who is just come out even from an abortion situation, that they don't give them life-giving care. And this is just where you're starting to see this whole deal boil up and boil up and boil up. So again, Republicans had a little bit rougher start. They had a good week this past week. I just wanted to put that plug in there. But when also we're dealing in starting this new week, you're still dealing with the Biden document scandal. I mean, the man doesn't even seem to know where he's at when these documents are or why they were even there. This is going to become mark my word, folks, this will become a bigger and bigger issue as we go along this year, and also determining whether Biden will actually run for office in 2024. So a lot coming up this week. We're going to also have Kelly Armstrong on probably this week. We'll have Bruce Thompson, a labor commissioner from Georgia. We're going to talk job market. And on Friday, we'll have it again, the look at the week. Can you believe it? And you're going to have a great time. So, folks, stick with us. But right now, we've got a great show with Sara Carter, and look forward to it. So take care. So how often are you staying at the border, Sara? Because I see you down there all the time. I mean, how much do you think you're staying down there right now?
A good percentage of my life is spent at the border. I feel like I'm more familiar with the border and Kabul than my own house right now. I used to say that.
Believe me, hey, I just got back in off the road. I literally, because we were getting this done. I was so glad to get, to you and I were going to be able to talk. And I was flying in. I was in New York, then went to D.C., and then got back. And I had actual duty last weekend in the Air Force. And so I'm just getting back home like 30 minutes ago, and it's like, okay, is there something about, Sara, just walking back into your house and you look around and it's like, whew.
Yes, like a big sense of relief. And I'm always, especially because our youngest is 10. So we have the older kids, right, who are all okay. We don't need to be around them. The youngest one is the one that I feel worse for whenever I'm gone. And so I'm on the phone with her every night or FaceTiming. And then when I'm home, I'm home. So I am blessed that I'm not going to complain. It's first world problems. But when I'm home and I get to take her to school and, do all the mommy stuff. But I do feel bad sometimes, but she knows, and I've taken her on trips with me, and let me tell you this. This will be funny. Doug, you're going to laugh at this. So when I took her, it was like over a year ago or when CPAC came back, right? Remember when it was in Dallas?
Oh,
and
yeah,
I took her with me there because I was speaking. And she hung out with other kids, and she was out on her own with the other kids while I was getting ready to go up and speak. And I was so busy running back and forth. And then I thought, okay, President Trump's going to speak. Let's all get together and go around and see him speak. And we were sitting kind of towards the front. And my daughter's 10. She looks up at me at that time, she was 9. She looks up at me and she goes, "Oh, I already met him. He and I already talked." And I was like, I spoke here and I didn't even get a chance to say hello to him. She goes, "Oh yeah." He was walking towards the back and I said, "Mr. President, my name is Annalise." Sarah is my mom. Sarah is my mom.
There's a group of us that our kids are growing up in this just altered universe. I'm just a kid from North Georgia, the trooper for a daddy. And, all this is, I'm still like, they're going to pinch me. They're going to kick me out at some point. And now our kids are getting to follow in on what we're doing.
That is so true. I mean, I grew up, man, I would have never in my life dreamed of being in Washington, D.C. or doing the stories that I'm doing ever. Or, and I mean, it was just never something that I thought of. I didn't grow up with, parents that were involved in politics or who had money. My parents didn't have much money. My parents didn't have much money at all.
You talking about a trooper's kid and my mom who worked for a government group that did the area aging. In other words, the places where the seniors came during the day for meals and stuff. Okay. Yeah. I get you right there.
That's what my mom did. So my mom did that for a while too. After my dad died, my mom worked at elderly facilities, where she would come and she would tell me all these like heartbreaking stories, like with her Cuban accent. "Ay, Sara, their children no even see them anymore. They just sit there."
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, what did you do, Mom?" And she's like, "Well, I sat and talked with them the whole time." And, I'm like, "Well, okay."
So the way it works, but and we're going to continue, and look, for the listener who's dropping in on our conversation here, this is Sara Carter. She's the host of the Dark Wars podcast. Dear friend of mine. We've known each other now for several years, going back to the time of, doesn't it seem like now a different era of the Russia investigation and all of that going on? And all of it's been within the last 5 or 6 years, but it seems like it's an eternity ago, Sarah.
Yeah, it does. I was thinking the same thing, especially when all the information just came out on, President Biden and all of his documents and, the classified documents. And I was thinking back to when we first started breaking the stories on, the FBI and Donald Trump and what was going on with Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. And it feels like an eternity ago. But remember, even when you and I, Doug, were talking and you were in Congress and everybody would, be on different shows or we would talk about things because we didn't really know. It was peeling back layers of an onion. And we didn't know, like, oh my gosh, you'd see these text messages and holy cow, I can't believe James Baker, the general counsel, did this or Rod Rosenstein did this. But now I realize, just like when I would tell people, I say, "Why don't you write a book? Why don't you write a book?" And I would say, because I don't feel like we know the whole story. I just feel like there's this big chunk of the story that's missing. And for sure, a big chunk of the story was missing because now we see it, now we see what's coming out.
Yeah. Don't you think, Sarah, though, it was one of those things where you sit there and said, we knew we were right. We just couldn't show you. And now it is, we told you so. And, it's just amazing like that.
It is. And, and I think about like when we started breaking those stories, little pieces here, little pieces there. And then I remember when remember Attorney General Jeff Sessions? That seems like forever ago. That seemed like that didn't even happen. And when they fired Andy McCabe, and when the information came out that James Clapper, who we all know, head of the intelligence, and the DNI, Director of National Intelligence, and at the time, he was the one that was really, from what we discovered from all of the documentation, leaking information, erroneous lies and stories that were in that dossier to CNN, to Jake Tapper. And, and then you had John Brennan. But you know what kills me is that after all of that came out, these guys got jobs at the time, at CNN, at MSNBC. They were being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably, maybe even more. I don't know how much they made, maybe $1 million, who knows, to be, talking heads for these networks. And they were just purely lying about everything. And now we know it. Twitter, what we've seen on Twittergate, everything.
Think about it. James Baker went to Twitter. Andy McCabe went to CNN. And Andy McCabe, by the way, is still there. And, again, all of this, and I want to hold that. I want to put a pin in that one because all of this, I think, ties around a big story that, like I said, you've been at the border, you've been there. Folks, if you don't know it, I said it a minute ago, the host of Dark Wars podcast, go to darkwarspod.com. I mean, at Dark Wars Pod, you got a 10-part series coming out. Give me, how did you get into, because you truly, in many ways, whether people, again, are watching it, they know, you become sort of the border, hey, folks, we got a problem down here. And you've been doing it over and over and over again. Talk about what this your podcast series, talk about what's coming up here, but just sort of what you're seeing and from the front line.
So I don't know if you know, maybe you do. I think I might have told you a while back, but when I first started covering news, I was covering the border. And that goes all the way back to 2004, 2005. I covered the border in California. I covered gangland for the Daily Bulletin. We had a multiple part series that won a lot of awards exposing what was happening in our inner cities and how the drug cartels were funneling money and how other militias were funneling weapons back to Mexico and what that meant to us as a nation. And, and the overgrowing problem with immigration even back then, and that we weren't handling and that our government was having a difficult time with because we were trying to protect our national security and keep a partnership with our neighbors to the south. So I spent a lot of my career covering the border. I broke the original stories on the Mexican military infiltrating the United States to assist the drug cartels. And I actually had government documentation to prove that. And I eventually ended up in Washington, D.C., covering that as well. And then I ended up obviously in Afghanistan and Iraq covering the wars, and then came back to the border. So I've been covering the border now for almost 20 years, maybe more, maybe less, just depending on where I was at that point in my career. And I've never seen it like this. Dark Wars, the Dark Wars podcast, The Border, which is darkwarspod.com, is for me a journey of I don't want to say it's a journey of love, because it might be. It's a journey to save not only the lives of our children and our national security, Doug, but also the lives of the children that are being trafficked into our country, and to give the American people literally the truth through the mouths of those that are on the front lines, experts in the field that can talk about these issues, from fentanyl and what it's doing, and how the Chinese Communist Party is allowing those precursor chemicals to get into Mexico, and then having the drug cartels actually utilize those chemicals to create counterfeit pills to target our nation. And we've seen a skyrocketing death rate. It's horrific. To the fact that young children are being trafficked into the United States. And I just returned from the border, and Senator Marsha Blackburn, I know you know her very well, Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith, and then new Senator Britt from Alabama, three great GOP women, conservatives who had called me, actually, Marsha Blackburn's office did, and said, hey, we're going to do this Codell to the border. We know you've been down there a lot and you're working on a lot of various projects. And could we meet with some folks down there that would tell us the truth? Could you put us in touch with anybody who is working on an anti-trafficking campaign or any young girls who may have been rescued? And I did. I brought in a young lady through my small foundation. I brought her in from another foundation that she works for now from Mexico. She had been trafficked from the age of 12 to 16. She had actually been raped, I would say, since she was 5 years old, but actually sold to a trafficking organization from 12 to 16 and survived by the grace of God because somebody cared enough to pay enough to get her out. And my friend Rosie Orozco took her in. And now she is an advocate worldwide against human trafficking. She speaks for children. She's met with the Pope 3 times. She's been all over the world telling her story. And she is one of, I would say, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, millions, we know now, of voices that have not been heard. Children that are being trafficked into our country, who are disappearing into our fabric of our society, and who are being tormented and tortured by, and I don't know what's ringing right now, but I will. Is that mine or yours? That might be mine.
Yours.
That might be mine over here. Let me go get that and I'll be right back. You see what happens on a live podcast? This is what happens.
That's what happens.
This is what happens. I'll be right back. There we go. So it looks like somebody who wants to be, somebody who really is desperate to talk to me because they're not going to hang up.
Exactly.
But I hung up on them. But I hung up on them. And that's why I'm doing this podcast series. I want Americans to realize that this isn't just numbers at the border. These are real people. And our children are also, being targeted by the cartels. And we've seen those death rates skyrocket over 100,000, 60% of which was related to fentanyl. A lot of our children are being poisoned. They are not drug addicts. They are not junkies. They are taking a pill and then they are dying. And not only that, I think our adversaries are taking advantage of it too. We've seen what China has been doing in the United States and utilizing the border for its own purposes and purchasing up land in our country and, targeting our weaknesses. And if we as Americans don't wake up and we don't take this seriously, and remember, we used to say it all the time, Doug, I just absolutely admired everything you did in Congress. I thought you were one of the true fighters out there. Like, there are very few lawmakers like you, very few, but you were always on the forefront. You were always fighting for your constituents. You're doing that now. And you do that for our nation. But if we, the American people, don't take back our responsibility to be the ones in charge, then we could face really dire circumstances in the future.
Well, Sarah, you're putting it out there, and I thank you for that. But I mean, you're putting it out there. You're getting the information. And that's what we've got to do. Look, if you don't know the horrific nature on the border, all you got to do is go to this podcast, Art Wars Podcast, look it up. You'll find it. Sarah will give you the straight scoop on what's happening. Nice America doesn't like to think of 7-year-olds being trafficked for sex. Okay, they don't like to think of young women and young boys being brutalized, mutilated, and everything else that they are. And it's happening, folks. It's real. Okay. Let's just get over it. It's there. And we've got,
and we can stop it. We can stop it. We can literally pull the rug out from underneath these organizations. And that's something we should be so proud of. We can literally hold these cartels, these organizations accountable for what they are doing to our children, for what they are doing to our world. And we got to get our government on board to do the same thing.
There's your key right there. And that brings me to another part. And I want to is continuing this because it is, you got to have a want to. There's a want to in the government. And look, the states can do whatever they want. And look, I think they do highlight it by sending the immigrants everywhere else and everything. But it's at the end of the day, the federal government has the problem. Okay. And they've got to fix it. Okay. But I want to take it to another because you see these folks like I did. And the ones, what I'm really becoming more and more concerned about, if you ever go to the beach, and I know you do, you see the sea walls that protect the shore, that protect the buildings, and that's your first line of buffer. And for us, we think about the wall or the wall that didn't get made. We talk about, but truly the wall for us is the blue and green down there. Those border patrol agents and those agents on those lines. That's truly our wall. My concern is they are being eroded away and away and away. And you don't fix human issues quickly. You can put up a new physical wall, but you can't fix these human issues and the neglect right now. How far do you think have we gone there? And are you really concerned that it might be hard to fix that?
I totally agree with you, Doug. I think that our law enforcement agents in the Border Patrol, federal law enforcement agents, their morale it's extraordinarily low. We've seen an increase in suicides among Border Patrol agents. We've also seen the morale among, our ICE officers, the same way Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers, they feel like they can't do their job. The federal government has to allow them to do their job. I mean, they're under this federal mandate anyways, this unspoken type of regulation where it's like you're going to pretend to do what you're doing, and then you're going to release these people and these folks into our country. And most of the people that they're releasing, believe me, they do not have thorough background checks conducted. Very rarely. Yeah, you know this. Very rarely. Okay, so they committed a crime in the United States. Sure, we're going to get a ping on that. But we have no idea if the person that we just let in from Venezuela or Cuba or Nicaragua or, and I'm half Cuban, right? I'm half Cuban. My mom came here legally. But we have no idea if the people that we are letting in have molested children at home, have a criminal record, have been under arrest, are a threat to society, are a terrorist. And we know that 92 at least were on a terror watch list. But as for our agents and our officers, look, the governor of Texas, Governor Greg Abbott, he can only do what he can do in his state. And it can only go so far. And he can't do much more than that. I watched the other morning with Senator Blackburn, Senator Britt, and Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith. We were right there in Eagle Pass, right on the border, right under the bridge. And a few people across, it was about 10. They wanted to cross, and they did. They waved me down, and he started talking to me in Spanish. It was a Haitian man who said he was from Haiti, but lived in South America for a while. And he said, the president opened the border. Why can't we just cross the border? And I was like, well, I can't give you permission to cross any border. And they had, almost all of them had little children with them. And I said, look, the river is dangerous. I said in Spanish, you're taking a risk when you cross your children. They could die. You could lose them in the river. It's very dangerous. Many people have died. I tried to warn them. They walked. You know what they did? They walked up the river when they saw another group coming. Another group of like maybe 15 to 18 people, they walked up, and our National Guard is on the river, not to stop them, but to guide them around on the island where it's easier, because of course they don't want to see children die. I don't, but they're literally guiding them into the country. And then our Border Patrol is like, okay, so now we process them. We put them on a bus. We give them medical attention, we clean them up, and we let them go. Or they're sleeping on our streets in El Paso. So how should our law enforcement agents feel?
Until Joe Biden comes by.
Or until Joe Biden. And he never waved at them. I was down at the church the whole time waiting. They had dumped all the trash into the recycling bins. Everything looked hunky-dory. It was all cleaned up, except for the 200 to 300 people sleeping outside of Sacred Heart Church in El Paso. And I was with them. I was sitting there with them. And guess what? They all had little brand new clean American flags that they somehow got.
Amazing.
It was unbelievable. I was like, where did you get that? They didn't.
Yeah,
they didn't even know
fair existed. Come on.
Right. They didn't even know. They were like, oh, it was here with these new toys that we got. I was like, oh, okay. This is what it is. It's smoke and mirrors, right? Smoke and mirrors. They don't want the American public to know. But my question, I guess, in my mind, and I'm sure you have a better answer for this, is like, what do we do when a terrorist, God help us if they are in here, a terrorist does enter our nation, conducts a massive attack at one of our, God help us, malls or schools, whatever, a public space that's an easy target. What is the Biden administration going to do then? I mean, are they going to take responsibility for it? Are they going to be like, okay, mea culpa, I just let the border go crazy? Because they really can't say that they did their job. And that's what this podcast is about. That's what it's exposing, is the truth.
Well, and I think that's true. Look, I could tell you what I think would probably happen, but it would be so, because it'd be so truthful, it'd be offensive to the Biden administration, because they would never focus on the border. They'd focus on whatever happened and blame something else. And that it happened. And because this is an administration that frankly wants to take no responsibility for anything, which then leads me back into a conversation. This is hot off the topic. I know we're going to switch from the border for a minute, because it's all about competency level here. And the incompetent level of what's going on in this administration. Look, and all of this stuff with the newly found documents. Okay. Is there a difference between Trump and Biden? Yes. Is there semantical differences? Yes. Is there real differences? Yes. The bottom line here, though, is how, I mean, Sarah, could you imagine being in the White House right now and your job was, either Ron Klain or you're trying to keep this out of the ditch. And then all of a sudden, now we know 2 months ago they find this out,
right?
And they just got to be throwing their hands up in the water and saying, like, what scares me is he truly doesn't remember, and what else does he not remember?
Yeah, exactly. And what kind of liability is that? And you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking that there are people within that White House that wanted this information to come out.
That's become more and more. I actually was asked that yesterday on TV. I had an interview I did, and they said, well, do you think this could be? And I'm saying, like, okay, the one thing that I can say, the last 4 years, unfortunately, some of the conspiracy theories we thought were, everybody told us were conspiracies, were actually true. And now it's becoming more and more that, look, but here, okay, let's take it. Let's say you're true. And I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you. Who do they go to? Who is their 24 candidate? Stacey Abrams? Yay, let's do that one. Pete Buttigieg?
Newsom?
Yeah, Newsom. Oh, yeah. Let's go to the most liberal place you can go. You got a Buttigieg who's a small town mayor who obviously does real well. I don't know if you got caught up in the flight problems the other day.
He was amazing.
Pete, buddy, you seem to be a good guy. Your family, God bless you. But stay away from my transportation system and fix it.
Yes, please. Yes.
Speaking of which, okay, here's my one pitch for government that actually is a function and role of government that they're supposed to have under the Constitution. That is the transportation, the highway. And I tried one over there. You got to put some money into these FAA systems. I mean, come on,
Well, yes, we do. And we have to secure our FAA systems. I mean, even though this was not, they said it was not, quote unquote, a cyber attack, there was something else going on in Canada and shortly after with they were having similar issues. It just shows you how dangerous it can be, even if it's not a cyber attack. I mean, they're just putting us all at risk. And if it's an antiquated system that did that, well, then, I mean, it should be pretty easy for hackers to access antiquated systems. So neither case and neither scenario makes me feel any better about getting up in the air.
Well, they actually did deliver the Commodore 64s there the other day to see if they could make it in.
Do you remember those?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember those Commodore 64s? They were like, I wanted to be like a computer, programmer. I remember, being a kid just trying to 00011.
Oh, yeah.
0.
Yeah.
I thought I was in Star Trek or something.
Oh yeah, I was in high school when we got our first Apple IIe's. Okay, there were two of them. They were put into the library, and you could only go and you could make "hello" spin up and down on the issue. And
that's awesome.
It's just so I mean, look, I'm old enough to remember we barely got this in, but you're right. I mean, if I wasn't thinking,
I was still using a typewriter in college because my mom did not have the money to get me a computer. And I remember my college professor, it was like my freshman year, saying to me, like, there are computers now that could help with this. I'm like thinking, well, really? Because I can't afford
Yeah, yeah. What was that old country music song? The somebody told us Wall Street fell. We were so poor we couldn't tell. It's like,
Yeah, right. It's like, oh, did it?
really? Oh, wow, that's cool.
Wall Street fell for me when I was born. It was like
Yeah.
it was already.
Wait, did it
hitting
fall
rock
over?
bottom.
Was there something wrong with it? For those of us who had no clue. It is. Yeah.
What wall are you talking about?
The wall downtown fell down. Really?
Yeah, exactly. Jeez.
But this, I mean, in liking this is looking at the Biden administration. Like I said, they got no place to turn. And the sad part about this is, and I asked the question yesterday on these documents. Okay, and look, I am one who takes a setback because being still in the military, I know, and now you'll get a funny out of this one. Alan Dershowitz and I were on with Michael Grimm on Newsmax yesterday. It was just an interview about this. Dershowitz going on saying, "Oh, they're never going to be charged. Nobody's ever charged about this." And look, I like Alan a lot. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we agree on a lot of things. But I interrupted, and the interviewer said, "Doug, you have something to say?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Look, I respect Alan a great deal." I said, "But there's a problem here. People are every day, every month are arrested and indicted and kicked out of the military, kicked out of FBI, kicked out because of this kind of unintentional mishandling of material." And Michael Grimm, former congressman, he's former FBI, he said, "Yeah, Alan," he said, but then he tried to bring up, well, that means that Biden and Trump are just automatically guilty. I said, okay, we can't go there. But when can we get back to seriousness of all law are equal, and that everybody, they have a reason for this stuff. You go through the legal process of due process, but we've got to get back to where average Americans feel like that everybody is under the same system.
That's exactly right. And we all have to feel secure. And I think the issue that I've seen with this, the difference is here. President Trump, and it may have been an administrative issue more. And I listened to Greg Jarrett talk about that under the legalese. And that could have been, administrative problem. And yes, it was wrong. You have to follow procedure. But a president is the ultimate authority in declassification.
It makes a difference.
Straight makes a huge difference. But when you're the vice president, you don't have that authority. You're not supposed to be walking out with documents. And this is where I'm not saying that he did this to sell anything. I'm not saying he did this to be nefarious or, sell out America. But let's be frank right now. His son has a very serious issue, and it's sad. And a lot of Americans deal with, addiction in their families and children who are addicts. But you have a son who you work closely with, who sat on the board of Burisma for Ukraine, who worked with Chinese companies, who was on Air Force One with them when they'd go visit places. And guess what? All the prostitutes that I believe Hunter Biden was sleeping with and doing coke with, I don't think they were all just street prostitutes. I think there was a lot of compromise and compromise. If I was a Russian agent working, in Russia for, the FSB or the KGB, now FSB, I would look at Hunter Biden as a potential target to compromise right away. You have a dad who's a senator and a vice president and now the president of the United States. How much money did China send, to Penn, into Pennsylvania?
Oh,
over
exactly.
over 30 million. You're telling me that these are not issues that we should be concerned about, even if Biden can't remember anything now. Who knows if they were in his garage? If I was a spy, I'd be going in that garage in Delaware 24/7.
I mean, well, look, though, remember we have as Jonathan Turley has now said, we now have the Corvette standard for locking up documents. It is wild.
You know what? The Corvette standard is it moves damn fast whenever.
Exactly. And Hunter
whenever anyone tries.
Yeah, Hunter can speak to that. Well, I think you got to, but you're also right. Just to think that, frankly, to think it was just Russia or maybe China compromising Hunter. You got Mossad, you got British SAF, you got
100%.
It's funny to me. You remember when it came out and everybody got all outraged when it was learned that we had files and stuff and we were listening into Merkel and all in Germany.
Yes,
and everybody
got all offended by that. Her phone calls. They were
offended by that. And I kept saying, and
everybody
I told some people
that.
who were all, in faux outrage. I said, the only thing I'm outraged about is you think that it wasn't happening.
Right.
We got to know everything because they're doing it to us. And I said,
100%.
That's the nature of it as we go.
Well, what about you brought up something really interesting.
Okay.
I don't want to take you off your topic,
you're good.
but you
we're
just
closing this
popped
out.
up. It popped into my head. It's like Epstein, right? And Ghislaine Maxwell, right? And all of the mystery around that. Okay, so Ghislaine's in jail, but like there were so many people around both of these folks, right? That were powerful people, Prince Andrew, others, everybody that was hanging out with them, Bill Gates. I mean, I think they just put themselves in places of opportunity, right? Which is interesting to me. I love how she's always popping up in pictures, kind of like Where's Waldo behind Elon Musk.
She's the female Forrest Gump.
Yeah, exactly. She is. And still, I was thinking about intelligence agencies, right? Like if I was the Mossad, if I was the CIA, if I'm working for French intelligence, Belgian intelligence, who cares who it is, right? What airplane would you want access to in the planet more than Epstein's plane? That plane must have been like wired with like every... Yeah, it would be like the Saudis would be calling, the Belgians, did you see who was on that plane? So
Let's
now
compare
I'm
notes.
wondering.
Here we go. Yeah. Oh,
yeah. So now I'm wondering, like, maybe we're all compromised. I want to know who the guy is that owns all those dossiers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Who is the ultimate authority?
Well, all we got to do is find Nellie
They don't have
Orr.
nothing.
Find them.
Oh, Nellie Orr. That's right. Over at
that's what it is. There we go.
But I would be so boring. I would be so boring. But a dossier would be really bad on me. It would be really cheap.
Mine wouldn't be good either.
Yeah, she killed a scorpion.
Well, folks, you're listening to Sara Carter with me on her Dark Wars podcast. She's got going. Please go find it. Sarah, just listen to Sarah anytime you get a chance is what you need to do. And I want to come back, Sarah, and probably and we'll work this out. Come back in a couple months because I do want to. And we didn't have time because we want to do. I don't want to deal with your Dark Wars, the immigration, some of these other things. But I want to come back and just sort of revisit what you and I've talked about over time, especially coming into some of the new investigations that are going to happen. Still Hunter Biden still around. Still there's still the Russia issues, and it's not now as much that it's going to directly affect Trump and the other things that were going on, but it directly affects how our government operates. And I want to get in with that with you in another podcast at another time. Let's unpack that.
I would love to. And I know we were kind of having our conversation, and I was running in from the other. I mean, it was just the wildness of the behind the scenes, right? The behind the scenes.
Well, speaking
of the
of
podcast world.
Before we get going here, though, I'm going to also give you another chance to be proud mom. You just had one graduate from college.
Oh, my gosh. University of Wyoming, my beautiful Sophia. I love you so much. She did so great. She was on the honor roll, and she criminal justice major, and just is my pride and joy, as are all of our children. So they're all 6 of them are amazing, and they all have their own, but I was very, very proud of Sophia. It was awesome. She did it on her own, and she worked so hard and deserves everything for that. I think she was just amazing.
Well, I had to give a good. I mean, because I've got my boys. That's the pride of our lives. That's the next generation. And I wanted to give you a proud mama moment there.
Oh, thank you. I am a mama bear. I am.
There we go. All right.
I'm crazy about my babies.
Well, Sarah's take care. It's always good to be. And like I said, let's do this in the future. And we'll plan it out because I really want listeners to understand what we've been through, where we've been, and I don't think there's been enough of that actually. Because like you said, at the time we were saying it. But I couldn't say, okay, here's the document. Now I can say, hey, here's a document. Here's an interview. And we got more coming up. So, Sarah, thanks for being on the podcast today. And we'll look forward to having you back soon, okay?
I look forward to being on, Doug. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hey folks, MyPillow is excited to bring to you their biggest bedding sale ever. For a limited time, you're going to get the Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98, a set of pillowcases for only $9.98, and rejuvenate your bed with a MyPillow mattress topper for as low as $99.98. $99.99. Get a mattress pillow topper. Look, they come in all sizes. They got all kinds of stuff, blankets. They've got duvets. They've got quilts. They got comforters. They got body pillows. They got bolster pillows. They got all at big, big discounts. And also, they're extending their money-back guarantee for Christmas until March 1, 2023, making them the perfect gift for your friends, your family, and for everyone you know. Folks, and just from a personal note here, I have the Giza Dream Sheets. They're on my bed right now. I slept on them last night. Some of the best sheets that we and Lisa and I have ever owned. They are worth, I mean, at this price, they're a steal. My wife and I have bought bed sheets, linens at much higher cost. It's supposedly much higher quality. These from MyPillow are at the highest of quality, and at a price like this, you can't beat it. So go now to MyPillow.com, use promo code Collins, COLLINS, or call 1-800-986-3994, and you'll get huge discounts on all the MyPillow bedding products, including the Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98, and get all your shopping done while qualities last. And remember, put in that promo code Collins for these discounts.